Happy Sunday morning. A few days ago, news outlet The New Republic got their hands on a memo to the Department of Homeland Security. It's a memo resulting from a meeting that took place between people from Homeland Security and the Department of Defense. The memo was drafted by Pete Hegsth, our Secretary of Defense, his little brother, Phil Hegsth. He's a liaison officer to the Department of Defense for Homeland Security for some reason. It's about a meeting that was attended by Pete Hegsth, General Dan Kane, Raisin Kane, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Northcom Commander General Gregory Guiot, Lieutenant General Chris Lenave, a senior military advisor to SecDef, and Ricky Burria, Eric Greasy, Patrick Weaver, all of them senior advisors to SecDef Pete Hegsth. I don't know if they're all drinking buddies or not. But the memo, fortunately, it was leaked. It outlines a coordinated strategy to embed United States military forces into immigration enforcement, not just at the border, but across American cities on U.S. soil. It calls for replicating the recent Los Angeles deployment, quote, for years to come, and uses phrases like homeland defense and paints immigration threats as akin to Al-Qaeda or ISIS, terrorists. Because if it's terrorism, the president can basically do whatever the hell he wants to do, often without congressional approval. Because the authorized use for military force, the AUMF document that gave us the Afghanistan war and the Iraq war, I believe is still in effect. And it's like the president can do X, Y, and Z if he's going after Al-Qaeda or ISIS or their affiliates and associated organizations. That's why you've been hearing so much about there are terrorists flooding across the southern border. Yeah. It pushes for new ideas on how DHS and DoD can work together on national security threats inside the United States using ICE. This isn't about law enforcement. It's about militarization. It's not about safety. It's about power. This is not about stopping crime. It's about building a political machine with boots and guns on the ground inside American cities that can intimidate or even subdue any opposition. But let's talk about what happened in LA, which I understand there are some music festivals going on in Los Angeles right now. That's code for protests, because there are still protests happening and nobody in the military is showing that. If you're going to a music festival and you want a super cool shirt, you can find this one at hawkmerchstore.com, a king on his throne. No tariffs. Our shit's made here. They want to put, so what happened in Los Angeles? Donald Trump commandeered and deployed 4,000 National Guard troops, and he put 700 or 800 United States Marines on the ground. Those have all been recalled. We've seen reporting from many of those troops that while they were in Los Angeles, they sat on their thumbs and had nothing to do. Because there were no riots. There were no massive protests. Nobody tried to take over federal buildings. We saw them march through MacArthur Park while kids were in there in the park because it's summertime and they had summer camp activities inside the park. And then we marched the National Guard and the U.S. Marines through the park because somebody at DoD was 100% convinced that park was full of members of the El Salvadoran gang MS-13. There were, in fact, none. So, from a military standpoint, what Trump did in Los Angeles with National Guard troops and Marines was an abject total failure They sat around and did nothing. And it cost millions and millions of dollars to have them there. And now they want to repeat that in presumably blue cities all across the country. And Pete Hegseth's little brother is drawing up the plan by which they're going to try to do that. Bear in mind, it's all still completely illegal for them to do that because of the Posse Comitatus Act, which prevents military personnel from engaging in law enforcement activities on U.S. soil. The only way to get around the Posse Comitatus Act is to invoke the Insurrection Act, which Donald Trump has not done. He's just ignoring that and doing it anyway. A federal judge in California said, that's illegal. You're not allowed to do that because of what I just said. You're violating the Posse Comitatus Act and you haven't invoked the Insurrection Act. And that order was quickly reversed by a 3-judge panel on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. 2 of those judges had been appointed by Donald Trump. I watched that hearing. And they're like, nah, it's fine. It's fine. Because once Trump commandeers National Guard troops from a state, they become U.S. military because they are under the control of the president, who is the commander-in-chief, which invokes the Posse Comitatus Act. And the only way around that is to invoke the Insurrection Act, which Donald Trump has not done. So, laws aren't laws anymore, except for people like you and me, I would imagine. And Donald Trump is rapidly consolidating his authoritarian powers so that he can become a dictator or a king. And again, you can get this shirt at hawkmerchstore.com. Have a great Sunday.